The little girl's voice cracked through the hospital's sterile silence, fragile yet piercing enough to break even the strongest hearts. "My hand hurts so much," she whimpered, her big brown eyes glistening with tears as she clutched her tiny fingers against her chest. The nurse beside her bent down, brushing away a strand of hair from her forehead, and whispered softly, "It's going to be okay, sweetheart. We'll make it better." The girl's name was Emily. She was just 6 years old, small, delicate, and carrying a pain far heavier than her young body should ever have known. Her hand was swollen, bruised with shades of purple and blue, and her sobs echoed through the emergency room. No one yet knew exactly what had happened, only that a neighbor had brought her in, saying he'd found her outside, crying on the sidewalk. Seconds later, the sound of polished shoes hitting the linoleum floor announced the arrival of a man who looked out of place in the hospital. His sharp navy suit, his expensive watch, and the aura of wealth about him made people step aside instinctively. He looked every bit the part of a man who had never known struggle. Yet his eyes told another story. The moment he saw the little girl on the hospital bed, his breath caught in his throat. "Emily," his voice cracked, raw with something the room had not expected from a man of his stature. The nurse glanced up, surprised. This man was William Harris, a name everyone in the city knew, real estate tycoon, billionaire investor, the kind of man whose picture appeared in magazines for his wealth and power. But tonight, he wasn't a tycoon. He was a father whose world had just been reduced to the tears of his little girl. Emily reached out her good hand toward him, her lips trembling. "Daddy, my hand hurts." He rushed to her side, kneeling by the hospital bed, not caring that his suit creased against the floor. He held her tiny hand gently, as though she were made of glass. His voice was tender, breaking. "I'm here, princess. Daddy's here. I won't let anything happen to you." The nurse hesitated, then quietly stepped back, allowing father and daughter that moment. William pressed his forehead to Emily's, his heart pounding with guilt and fear. He had been in meetings all day, chasing another deal, expanding another empire. Yet all the money in the world couldn't take away his daughter's pain right now. He would have given every penny just to take it from her. The doctor entered, flipping through Emily's chart, and said calmly, "It looks like a fracture in the hand. We'll need to do X-rays to be certain." William's chest tightened. He nodded quickly, almost too quickly, his hand still clutching Emily's. "Do whatever it takes. I don't care about the cost. Just make sure she's okay." But what struck everyone in the room wasn't his money or his commands. It was the way Emily looked at him. Despite her pain, she smiled faintly at her father's trembling voice. For her, his presence was enough. Later, as Emily was taken for X-rays, William sat in the waiting area, his head in his hands. He had faced boardrooms full of the most ruthless businessmen, had signed billion-dollar contracts, had survived scandals and crises. But tonight, he felt powerless. A stranger sat beside him, an older woman who had brought her own grandson in for a fever. She had watched the scene unfold, and now she placed a gentle hand on William's shoulder. "You know," she said softly, "children don't need millionaires. They just need their parents to hold them when it hurts." Her words cut deep. William lifted his head slowly, his throat tight, his eyes wet. He nodded, whispering almost to himself, I know. When Emily came back, her little hand wrapped in a cast, she looked for him instantly. William jumped up, scooping her into his arms, careful not to touch the injured hand. She rested her head on his shoulder, whispering, "I was scared, Daddy. But you came." That night, William didn't go home to his mansion. He stayed in the hospital, sleeping in the uncomfortable chair by Emily's bed, holding her uninjured hand while she slept peacefully. His assistant had called him a dozen times about missed meetings and postponed deals, but for once, William didn't care. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about contracts or investments. He was thinking about bedtime stories, lullabies, and the way his daughter's hair smelled when he kissed her forehead. In the days that followed, William's life began to change. Emily's recovery was slow, and every day, William was by her side, helping her eat, brushing her hair, reading her books. He began to see the world differently, through Emily's eyes. One afternoon, she looked up at him with the honesty only a child could carry and said, "Daddy, you're always on the phone. Even when I want to play." Will you play with me now? The words hit him harder than any corporate rival ever could. That night, William canceled his meetings. He sat on the floor with Emily, building castles out of toy blocks and laughing until his stomach hurt. But life had a way of testing him again. One morning, as they walked through the hospital lobby for Emily's checkup, William noticed a little boy sitting alone, clutching his stomach in pain. His clothes were tattered, his shoes worn. His mother sat beside him, crying quietly because she couldn't afford the treatment. William's chest ached as he watched them. Emily tugged at his sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, can we help them? Please." Her innocent plea brought tears to his eyes. Without hesitation, William walked to the front desk, pulling out his checkbook. He covered the boy's expenses in full. The mother wept, falling to her knees to thank him, but William gently lifted her up. "No thanks needed," he said, his voice thick. "Just take care of your son." That single act of kindness spread quickly through the hospital. Nurses whispered about it, patients smiled, and for the first time in years, William felt a warmth in his chest that no amount of wealth had ever given him. Emily hugged him tightly, whispering, "I'm proud of you, Daddy." Over the weeks, William began funding programs quietly: medical bills for struggling families, scholarships for children, renovations for the hospital's pediatric wing. But more than the donations, it was his presence, his willingness to sit with families, to listen, to hold a stranger's hand in their pain, that transformed him from a powerful man into a compassionate one. And Emily, his sweet, brave little girl, was his teacher. She reminded him that true wealth wasn't counted in dollars but in moments of love, kindness, and selflessness. Months later, as Emily's cast came off and her tiny hand healed, William lifted her up and spun her around in the hospital garden. She laughed, her voice ringing like music, shouting, "My hand doesn't hurt anymore." William pressed her to his chest, his eyes glistening. "And Daddy's heart doesn't hurt anymore either." From that day on, William wasn't just a millionaire in the eyes of the world. To Emily, and to the many lives he touched, he became something far greater, a man who chose love over power, kindness over pride, and humanity over wealth. And it all began with the cry of a little girl who whispered through her tears, "My hand hurts so much."